Ambassador Kethra felt her 6 arms trembling as she stared at the reports on her datapad. The blue-skinned Altarian had served on the Galactic Council for 30 years, but she had never seen anything like this. 3 major hostile civilizations had simply vanished in the past 6 months. Not defeated, not conquered. Completely gone. She walked through the massive halls of the council building, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. The building was designed to hold representatives from 47 different alien species. Some breathed oxygen like humans did. Others needed special suits filled with different gases. Some were tall and thin, others short and round. But today, they all shared the same worried expression. The first disappearance had been the Zephyrian hegemony. They were a war-loving species that had attacked human trading ships near the border systems. The humans had asked them to stop. The Zephyrians had laughed and attacked more ships. 3 weeks later, every Zephyrian world was empty. Not destroyed exactly, but cleaned of all life. The planets were still there, but no one lived on them anymore. Then came the Corvan Empire. They had enslaved a human colony world and refused to give it back. The humans sent diplomatic messages for 2 weeks. The Corvans ignored them and started taking more human prisoners. 4 weeks later, the entire Corvan Empire was gone. 46 star systems, hundreds of billions of beings, all dead. Now the Thessian raiders had met the same fate. These space pirates had been raiding human supply convoys for months. They bragged about it on galactic communication channels. They said humans were weak and easy targets. The humans warned them once to stop. The Thessians attacked a human passenger ship instead. 2 weeks later, every Thessian base, ship, and hideout had been wiped out completely. Kethra reached the main council chamber and looked around at her fellow representatives. There was Morthax from the hegemony, a tall gray being with 4 eyes. Vextar the chronicler sat nearby, her ancient mind holding the memories of 1,000 generations. Commander Zolt of the Federation Navy looked especially troubled, his reptilian face showing deep concern. "We need to discuss the human situation," Kethra announced as she took her place at the speaking platform. The massive chamber fell silent. Even the translators seemed to hum more quietly. 3 civilizations have ceased to exist after attacking human interests, she continued, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's speakers. "This is not normal warfare. This is something else entirely." Morthax stood up, his tall frame casting a long shadow. "In my species' history, we have fought many wars. We conquer planets, take resources, capture prisoners. Sometimes we destroy military bases or government buildings. But we never eliminate entire civilizations. That would be wasteful." Several other representatives nodded in agreement. Galactic warfare had rules that everyone understood. You fought until one side surrendered or retreated. You took what you needed and made the losers pay tribute. You might occupy their worlds for a while, but you did not kill everyone. That would be insane. "The humans are different," said Commander Zolt, his voice rough and deep. "When they fight, they do not seem interested in conquest or tribute. They appear to be interested in making sure their enemies can never threaten them again. Ever." Vexistar, the ancient chronicler, spoke in her whispered voice that somehow filled the entire chamber. "I have studied their history since they joined the Galactic Council 50 years ago. Their own records are disturbing. They have a long history of completely destroying their enemies." The chamber erupted in concerned murmurs and clicks and whistles, depending on what language each species spoke. The humans had seemed so normal when they first joined the galactic community. They traded fairly, shared technology, helped with medical emergencies, and followed all the laws. They were actually quite pleasant to work with most of the time. But when someone attacked them, something changed completely. Kethra activated a holographic display showing the 3 dead star systems. "Look at these maps," she said. The Zephyrians controlled 12 worlds. The Corvans had 46 systems. The Thessians operated from over 100 bases across 20 systems. In each case, every single location was hit simultaneously. Not just military targets. Everything. The display showed the timing of the attacks. In each case, every enemy position had been destroyed within hours of each other. This meant the humans had attacked targets spread across dozens of light-years of space at exactly the same time. The coordination required was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. "How do they do it?" asked Representative Quinn, a small floating being from the outer rim. "Our fastest ships take days to travel between star systems. How do they hit everything at once?" "That is not the most important question," said Kethra quietly. "The important question is why. Why do they feel the need to kill everyone? Why not just defeat their armies and demand surrender?" 2. Commander Zolt accessed his own files. "I have spoken with other military leaders across the galaxy. They all say the same thing. When humans fight, they do not fight to win territory or resources. They fight to end threats." Permanently. The chamber fell silent again as everyone considered this. Most species fought for land, wealth, or power. Some fought for religious reasons, or to prove they were superior. But the humans seemed to fight for a completely different reason. They fought to make sure they would never have to fight those same enemies again. "There is something else," Kethra added, her voice even quieter now. "After each of these extinctions, human leaders have sent messages to the galactic community. They do not apologize. They do not explain. They simply state that the threat has been eliminated and normal trade can resume." She paused and looked around the chamber at all the worried faces and concerned expressions. "They act like this is normal," she concluded. "Like completely destroying entire civilizations is just a reasonable response to being attacked. What kind of species thinks that way?" The question hung in the air like a poisonous cloud. Everyone in the chamber was thinking the same thing, but no one wanted to say it out loud. What if the humans decided that the Galactic Council itself was a threat? What if they decided that alien species in general were dangerous? What would happen then? The meeting ended with more questions than answers. But one thing was clear to everyone present. Humanity was not like the other species in the galaxy. When they went to war, they did not wage it. They ended it. Forever. Vexitar the Chronicler moved slowly through the vast digital archives beneath the council building. Her species, the Memorians, never forgot anything. Every memory from her ancestors going back 10,000 years lived inside her mind like a massive library. But today she needed to research something her people had never experienced before. She needed to understand human warfare. The archive room hummed with energy as thousands of data streams flowed around her. She could access the public records of any member species of the Galactic Council. The humans had willingly shared their entire history when they joined 50 years ago. At the time, everyone thought it showed how open and honest they were. Now Vexitar wondered if it had been a warning. She started with the earliest human records. Even their ancient history was violent in ways that shocked her. Most species fought wars over territory, resources, or honor. Humans seemed to fight wars to make sure their enemies could never fight them again. Ever. The first pattern she noticed was something humans called total war. When most species went to war, they sent armies to fight other armies. Civilians were usually left alone. Farms and cities were captured, not destroyed. The goal was to defeat the enemy and take their stuff. But humans had a different approach. When they decided to fight a war, they attacked everything that helped their enemy survive. They destroyed farms, so enemies could not eat. They bombed factories, so enemies could not make weapons. They attacked cities where families lived. They wanted to break the enemy's ability to ever fight back. Vexitar found records of something called the Second World War. Two groups of human nations had fought each other with incredible violence. The winning side had not just defeated the losing armies. They had completely destroyed the losing governments, taken apart their military forces, and rebuilt their entire societies from scratch. The losing nations were not allowed to have real armies for decades afterward. But even that was not the most disturbing part. The humans had actually used weapons that could destroy entire cities in single attacks. They had dropped these weapons on enemy cities full of civilians. When asked why, the human leaders said it was necessary to end the war quickly and save lives. They believed that killing hundreds of thousands of people at once was better than fighting a longer war that might kill millions. This type of thinking was completely alien to Vextar. No other species in the galaxy thought this way. When the Corvans fought the Zephyrians 200 years ago, they had fought for 30 years without ever attacking civilian populations. Both sides had eventually gotten tired and made peace. Their descendants were trading partners now. But humans did not seem to understand the concept of getting tired of war and making peace. When they fought until one side was completely unable to continue fighting. Forever. Vextar dug deeper into the records. She found something called the Mongol invasions from human ancient history. A human warlord named Genghis Khan had conquered most of their planet using a simple strategy. Any city that surrendered immediately was spared. Any city that fought back was completely destroyed, and everyone living there was killed. Word spread quickly, and most cities chose to surrender rather than die. The humans called this psychological warfare. They made war so terrible that enemies would give up without fighting. But the key was that they actually had to carry out the threat sometimes. They actually had to destroy entire cities to prove they would do it. She found similar patterns throughout human history. When human nations fought native populations on their own planet, they did not just defeat them in battle. They destroyed their ability to live as they had before. They took their land, killed their food sources, and forced survivors to live completely different lives. The humans called this pacification. Vextar realized that what the galaxy was seeing now was not new human behavior. It was the same behavior humans had always used, but now applied to alien species instead of other humans. She found records of human military academies where soldiers learned strategy and tactics. The courses had names like threat elimination, strategic destruction, and ensuring non-recurrence of hostilities. Human military officers actually studied how to make sure defeated enemies could never threaten them again. One textbook made her skin crawl with its casual tone. It discussed something called making the rubble bounce. This meant attacking enemy targets so thoroughly that even the broken pieces of buildings would be destroyed. Another section talked about killing them so dead they stay dead. The book explained that it was not enough to win battles. You had to remove the enemy's ability to ever fight you again. What shocked Vextar most was that humans considered this normal and reasonable. Their military manuals did not treat total destruction as an extreme option to be used only in desperate situations. They treated it as standard operating procedure for dealing with serious threats. She found recordings of human military leaders discussing strategy. They talked about acceptable losses and proportional response and escalation management. But their definitions of these terms were very different from what other species meant. When a human general said proportional response, he meant using enough force to completely eliminate the threat. When other species said proportional response, they meant using just enough force to stop the immediate attack and send a message. When humans talked about acceptable losses, they meant how many of their own people they were willing to sacrifice to achieve total victory. Other species usually meant how much damage they were willing to accept before agreeing to negotiate peace. Vextar spent 3 days going through human historical records. Wars between human tribes, wars between human nations, wars between human empires. The pattern was always the same. Humans did not fight to gain advantage. They fought to eliminate problems. She found a quote from an ancient human military philosopher named Sun Tzu. He had written, "To defeat an enemy without fighting is best. But if you must fight, fight so completely that you never have to fight them again." Another human military leader from more recent times had said, "The goal of war is not to die for your country. The goal is to make the other guy die for his country, and his family, and his friends, and anyone who might want revenge later." As Vextar prepared her report for the council, she realized something terrifying. The humans were not being unusually violent or cruel when they destroyed the Zephyrians, Corvans, and Thessians. By human standards, they were being completely normal and reasonable. What the galaxy considered genocide, humans considered Tuesday. Her report would shake the foundation of galactic civilization. Because if this was normal human behavior, what did that mean for every other species in the galaxy? What happened when humans decided that alien species in general were a threat? What happened when they applied their standard operating procedures to the entire galactic community? Vextar finished her research with one final, chilling realization. In all of human history, no enemy that had seriously threatened human civilization had ever been allowed to survive and try again. None of them. The humans had a perfect track record of threat elimination that stretched back thousands of years. And now they were part of a galactic community with hundreds of other species. The implications were terrifying to consider. Captain Yril Ka had served on Council monitoring ships for 15 years, but she had never been assigned to watch a war before. Her ship, the Neutral Observer, hung in space at the edge of the Draxan Empire's territory. She and her crew were there to record what happened when the massive Draxan supremacy fought against the humans. The Draxans were one of the most feared military powers in the galaxy. They stood 8 feet tall, had natural armor plating, and loved to fight. Their empire controlled 20 star systems and had conquered dozens of weaker species. They believed that strength was the only thing that mattered in the universe. 3 days ago, Draxan High Commander Thaxul had broadcast a message across the entire galaxy. He announced that humans were weak and pathetic, and that the Draxan supremacy would prove it by destroying the human colony world of New Geneva. He wanted everyone to watch as his forces demonstrated Draxan superiority. The attack had been brutal and efficient. 500 Draxan warships had surrounded New Geneva and begun bombing the planet. The human defensive fleet had been overwhelmed quickly. Within 6 hours, the planet's shields had failed, and Draxan ground forces had landed. The humans on New Geneva had fought bravely, but they were outnumbered 10 to 1. Captain Yril Ka watched the feeds from the planet's surface with growing horror. The Draxans were not just conquering the human colony. They were making examples of the defenders. Captured humans were being executed publicly, while Draxan leaders broadcast threats to all human worlds. This is what happens when you oppose the Draxan supremacy, High Commander Thaxul announced from the ruins of New Geneva's capital city. Let all humans learn that resistance is pointless. You will submit or be destroyed. The captain expected this to be the end of the incident. Most species would negotiate at this point. They would offer tribute or trade concessions to get their people back. Some might mount a rescue mission for the survivors. But humans, as everyone had learned, were not like most species. The first sign that something was different came exactly 18 hours after New Geneva fell. Captain Yril Ka's communications officer picked up a transmission from the human government. It was not a plea for mercy or an offer to negotiate. It was a simple, cold message broadcast on all galactic channels. To the Draxan supremacy, the message began. A human woman in a military uniform spoke calmly into the camera. Her name appeared on the screen as Admiral Sarah Chen. You attacked our civilians. This is unacceptable. You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally and release all prisoners. Failure to comply will result in proportional response. High Commander Thaxul's reply was broadcast 20 minutes later. He stood surrounded by human prisoners in chains, laughing at the camera. Proportional response? You have lost one small world. We have 20 star systems, and the most powerful military in this sector. What can you possibly do to us? The human admiral's final message was even shorter. You will discover what proportional means to us. Please ensure your species historians record why your civilization no longer exists. Captain Yril Ka and her crew watched the countdown timer on their screens. Exactly 72 hours after the human deadline, their long-range sensors began detecting something impossible. Massive energy signatures were appearing throughout Draxan space, not just near New Geneva, but in all 20 Draxan star systems simultaneously. Captain, her sensor officer called out in a voice filled with disbelief. I'm reading kinetic impactors incoming on every major Draxan world. Hundreds of them. They're traveling at 12% of light speed. Captain Yril Ka stared at the display showing the entire Draxan Empire. Bright red dots representing incoming projectiles were appearing everywhere at once. Military bases, government centers, industrial worlds, civilian population centers, every significant target across 20 star systems was being hit at exactly the same time. How is this possible? She whispered. How did they coordinate attacks across this much space? How did they even get weapons in position this quickly? Her science officer was frantically scanning with every instrument they had. Captain, these projectiles are not coming from ships. They appear to be launched from fixed positions in deep space. The humans must have spent years placing weapon platforms throughout Draxan territory without anyone knowing. The first impacts began hitting Draxan worlds. The kinetic weapons were simple chunks of metal moving at incredible speeds. But at those velocities they struck with the power of nuclear bombs. The monitoring ship's cameras captured the destruction of the Draxan capital world as dozens of projectiles slammed into the surface within minutes of each other. High Commander Thaxul's final transmission was brief and filled with panic. "We surrender! We surrender! Please stop the attack! We will release all prisoners immediately!" Admiral Chen's response came exactly 1 minute later. Surrender was available 72 hours ago. This is proportional response for attacking our civilians. Please note for your historical records. Threat elimination in progress. Captain Urilka watched in stunned silence as the Draxan Empire died. It took 6 hours for every major installation across 20 star systems to be destroyed. The humans had not sent a single ship into Draxan space. They had not risked any of their own people. They had simply triggered a trap that must have taken years to prepare. But the projectile bombardment was only the beginning. As the kinetic strikes ended, new energy signatures appeared throughout Draxan space. Human ships began emerging from what looked like empty space. They had been hiding somehow, waiting for the bombardment to finish. The human fleet was not large by galactic standards, but it moved with frightening precision. They began systematically destroying everything the kinetic strikes had missed: space stations, mining facilities, communication arrays, even automated satellites. If it belonged to the Draxan supremacy, the humans destroyed it. "They're not trying to capture anything," Captain Urilka realized with growing horror. "They're not taking prisoners. They're not occupying worlds. They're just cleaning up." Her communications officer intercepted Draxan military channels. The remaining Draxan forces were trying to surrender to anyone who would listen. Some were fleeing to neutral space. Others were abandoning their posts and hiding. But the humans continued their systematic destruction as if surrender was not even an option. Within 48 hours of the deadline, the Draxan supremacy no longer existed as a functioning civilization. Every government building was rubble. Every military base was a crater. Every industrial facility was melted metal. The 20 worlds they had controlled were still there, but they were empty of any organized life. The few survivors who escaped told the same story. The humans had not tortured anyone or committed atrocities against prisoners. They had simply killed anyone who represented the Draxan government or military and left civilian survivors to figure out how to live without their former civilization. Captain Urilka compiled her report with shaking hands. The efficiency of the human attack was beyond anything in galactic military history. They had eliminated an entire empire without losing a single ship. They had coordinated attacks across 20 star systems with perfect timing, and they had done it all as revenge for the attack on one colony world. The most disturbing part was Admiral Chen's final message to the galactic community. She appeared on camera again, still calm and professional. "The Draxan threat has been eliminated. Trade routes through former Draxan space are now safe for civilian traffic. Normal commerce may resume immediately." She paused and looked directly into the camera. "This concludes our proportional response to unprovoked aggression against human civilians. We hope this demonstration clarifies human defensive policies for any other civilizations considering similar actions." The Admiral's message was broadcasted on every galactic communication channel. But what chilled Captain Urilka to her core was the casual tone. The humans were not boasting about their victory or threatening other species. They were simply explaining that they had finished solving a problem, as if completely destroying an empire was just another item on their to-do list. Captain Urilka sent her report to the Council with a single recommendation. The galaxy needed to understand that humans did not fight wars the way everyone else did. When humans fought, they did not seek victory. They sought finality. And now, everyone in the galaxy had seen exactly what human finality looked like. The emergency session had been running for 8 hours straight, and Ambassador Kethra could feel the panic spreading through the council chamber like a virus. Representatives from 47 different species sat in stunned silence as they watched the recorded footage of the Draxan Empire's destruction over and over again. 20 star systems, whispered Representative Quinn, her small floating body trembling. Gone in 48 hours. How do we even comprehend such destruction? Commander Zolt slammed his clawed hand on his desk, causing several nearby representatives to jump. The question is not how they did it. The question is why they thought it was necessary. The Draxans attacked one human colony. The humans responded by erasing their entire civilization. Delegate Morthax stood slowly, his 4 eyes scanning the chamber. In my species' military doctrine, we have concepts of proportional response. If someone attacks one of our outposts, we attack one of theirs. If they destroy one of our ships, we destroy one of theirs. This creates balance, and eventually leads to negotiation. He gestured toward the display showing the dead Draxan worlds. What the humans call proportional response bears no relationship to anything we understand. They treated the attack on New Geneva as justification for genocide. Genocide, repeated Counselor Vex Tar, her ancient voice carrying memories of countless wars. That is what we would call it. But I have studied human history extensively now. They do not consider this genocide. They consider this pest control. The chamber erupted in worried chittering, clicking, and verbal protests in dozens of different languages. The translation systems struggled to keep up with the overlapping conversations. Order, called Supreme Counselor Zarath, her crystalline form glowing brighter to get everyone's attention. We must address this systematically. The humans have demonstrated capabilities that fundamentally change the balance of power in our galaxy. Dr. Kolvar, the Council's chief military analyst, activated a holographic display showing human defensive positions throughout known space. Based on our analysis of the Draxan attack, the humans had pre-positioned kinetic weapons platforms throughout Draxan territory. This suggests they have similar platforms positioned near other potentially hostile civilizations. The display zoomed out to show the entire galaxy. Red dots appeared near every major military power, including several council member worlds. Our intelligence suggests that humans have been quietly placing these weapon systems for decades. They may have the ability to destroy any civilization in the galaxy within days. They could destroy us, said Representative Thilak of the Mining Consortium, his rock-like features showing cracks of stress. All of us, at any time, without warning. But why would they? Asked Ambassador Kethra, though her voice lacked conviction. They have followed all galactic laws. They trade fairly, share technology, provide humanitarian aid. They seem to genuinely want peaceful relationships. Commander Zolt pulled up human diplomatic communications from the past 50 years. Look at their messages to us. Always polite, always reasonable. But now I see them differently. Every friendly trade agreement came with the implied threat that they could annihilate us if we crossed them. That's paranoid thinking, protested Councillor Minda of the Agricultural Alliance. The humans have never threatened any council member. They have only destroyed civilizations that attacked them first. Only. Vextar's whispered voice somehow filled the entire chamber. Only destroyed 4 entire civilizations in 6 months. Do you hear yourself? We are discussing the extinction of billions of beings as if it is a minor policy disagreement. The debate continued for hours, but 3 main positions emerged. The first group, led by Commander Zolt, wanted immediate action to limit human military capabilities before they decided the Council itself was a threat. The second group, represented by Ambassador Kethra, wanted to maintain normal relations while carefully avoiding anything that might trigger human defensive instincts. The third group, advocated by some of the smaller species, wanted to formally submit to human protection in hopes of being spared if humans ever turned aggressive. We could demand inspections of their weapon systems, suggested Delegate Voron of the Security Committee. Make them remove their kinetic platforms from our territories. And what happens when they refuse? Asked Commander Zolt grimly. Do we enforce our demands with military action? against a species that just casually destroyed 20 star systems? Representative Quinn floated nervously near the chamber ceiling. Maybe we could form an alliance of all council species. Mutual defense. If humans attack one of us, we all respond together. With what? Morthax laughed bitterly. Our combined fleets could not match what the Draxons had, and we all saw how well that worked out for them. The humans destroyed the Draxon Empire without losing a single ship. Dr. Kolvar brought up new intelligence that made the situation even more frightening. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected construction activity in the outer rim systems. The humans appear to be building something large, very large, and they are not telling anyone what it is. The holographic display showed massive construction sites in systems far from any inhabited worlds. The structures were enormous, bigger than space stations, bigger than cities. But their purpose was unclear. Stellar engineering projects, Dr. Kolvar continued. Our best analysis suggests they are building devices capable of affecting star systems on a fundamental level, possibly including stellar collapse. The chamber fell silent as everyone processed this information. Weapons that could destroy planets were one thing. Weapons that could destroy entire star systems were something else entirely. Why would they build such things? Whispered Counselor Minda. What possible threat could require that level of destructive power? Maybe they consider the entire galaxy a potential threat, said Vextar quietly. Maybe they are preparing for a war against everyone who is not human. One. Supreme Counselor Zarath dimmed her crystalline glow as she considered their options. We have several choices. We can attempt to restrict human activities through diplomatic pressure. We can try to build a coalition to contain them militarily. We can submit to their protection and hope they remain benevolent. Or, she paused, and everyone in the chamber understood what the fourth option was. Strike first before the humans decided to eliminate potential threats preemptively. None of these options are good, Zarath continued. But we must face reality. We are sharing a galaxy with a species that solves problems through total annihilation. Every day we delay making a decision is another day for them to prepare for conflicts we cannot imagine. Ambassador Kethra felt her multiple hearts beating faster as she considered the impossible situation. What if we simply ask them? What if we request a formal explanation of their defensive policies and their construction projects? Maybe there is something we do not understand. And if they refuse to answer? Asked Commander Zolt. Or if their answer confirms our worst fears? What then? The emergency session ended without any decisions, but with everyone understanding that their comfortable galaxy had changed forever. The humans had demonstrated that they possessed both the capability and the willingness to destroy entire civilizations. More frighteningly, they seemed to consider such destruction a normal and reasonable response to aggression. As representatives filed out of the chamber, many were already making private communications with their home governments. Emergency defense meetings were being scheduled. Alliance negotiations were beginning in secret. Some species were quietly moving their most important facilities to locations as far from human space as possible. Ambassador Kethra remained in the chamber long after everyone else had left, staring at the display showing the dead Draxon systems. In 50 years of galactic politics, she had seen trade wars, border disputes, even occasional military conflicts. But she had never seen anything like this. The humans had not just won a war. They had deleted their enemies from existence, with the casual efficiency of someone erasing a computer file. And according to their own statements, this was normal behavior for them. For the first time in her long career, Ambassador Kethra began to wonder if the Galactic Council would survive the next year. Not because of invasion or conquest, but because a species that considered genocide to be routine pest control might eventually decide that aliens in general were pests that needed controlling. The most terrifying part was that the humans probably would not even think of it as evil. They would just be solving another problem in the most efficient way possible. Dr. Marcus Webb walked calmly through the corridors of the Galactic Council building, his simple black suit a stark contrast to the elaborate robes and environmental suits worn by alien representatives. The humans had sent their best diplomat to address the growing crisis, But Webb was more than just a diplomat. He was a former military strategist who had helped plan the destruction of the Thessian raiders. The emergency assembly hall was packed with representatives from every council member species. Ambassador Kethra noticed that many delegates sat much farther from the human representative section than usual. Some species had positioned guards between themselves and the human delegation. The fear in the room was thick enough to taste. Supreme Counselor Zarath called the session to order, her crystalline form glowing nervously. Dr. Webb, the Council has requested this meeting to discuss human military policies and their implications for galactic peace. We hope you can provide clarification that will ease growing concerns among member species. Dr. Webb stood slowly and walked to the central platform. He carried no notes, no datapad, no presentation materials. Just a small, sad smile on his face as he looked around at the frightened aliens. "I understand your concerns," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's speakers. "You have witnessed the destruction of 4 civilizations in recent months, and you are wondering what kind of species could do such things so casually. The answer is simple. We are the kind of species that survived on Earth." He activated a holographic display showing a blue and green planet. Earth is what we call a death world. Everything on our planet tried to kill us for millions of years. Predators that could tear us apart with their claws. Diseases that could wipe out entire populations. Natural disasters that could destroy whole civilizations overnight. Even other groups of humans who competed with us for limited resources. The display showed images of Earth's wildlife, weather patterns, and geological activity. Many alien representatives shifted uncomfortably as they realized how hostile the human homeworld was compared to their own peaceful planets. "We learned early in our evolution that threats must be eliminated completely," Dr. Webb continued. "A predator you wound but do not kill will return with its pack. A disease you partially cure will evolve immunity and come back stronger. An enemy tribe you defeat but leave alive will rebuild their forces and attack your children." Ambassador Kethra raised one of her arms to speak. "But surely this applies only to natural threats. Civilized species can negotiate, make peace, learn to coexist." Dr. Webb's smile became even sadder. "That is what we thought too, Ambassador. For the first 30 years after joining the galactic community, we tried to handle conflicts the way other species do. When the Zephyrians attacked our trade ships, we lodged formal protests. When they continued attacking, we sent diplomatic missions. When they escalated to attacking civilian transports, we offered compensation for their grievances." He paused and looked around the chamber. "Do you know what the Zephyrians concluded from our peaceful responses? They concluded that humans were weak and cowardly. They escalated their attacks because they believed we would never seriously fight back. Our attempts at civilized behavior encouraged more aggression." Commander Zolt stood up, his reptilian features showing skepticism. "So you decided to destroy their entire civilization instead of simply demonstrating your military strength?" "We did demonstrate our military strength, Commander," Dr. Webb replied calmly. "We demonstrated it so thoroughly that it serves as a permanent lesson to anyone else considering similar actions. The complete elimination of the Zephyrian hegemony was not cruelty, it was education." The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs and protests. Dr. Webb waited patiently for the noise to die down before continuing. "Let me share some statistics that might interest you," he said, bringing up new displays. "In the 50 years before humans joined the galactic community, there were an average of 43 military conflicts per year between council member species. Trade piracy affected 18% of civilian shipping. Border disputes resulted in an average of 67 million casualties annually." The numbers appeared on screens throughout the chamber. Many representatives looked surprised by how high the casualty figures were. "In the 6 months since the destruction of the Zephyrian hegemony, there have been 3 military conflicts between council species. Piracy has dropped to less than 2% of civilian shipping. Border disputes are being resolved through negotiation at a rate 94% higher than the previous average." Dr. Webb gestured toward the aliens in the chamber. "Everyone seems much more interested in peaceful solutions now. I wonder why that might be." Representative Quinn floated higher in the chamber, her voice shaking. You are saying that you commit genocide to make the galaxy more peaceful? I am saying that we eliminate threats to make them no longer threatening, Doctor. Webb corrected gently. The goal is not death. The goal is the permanent end of hostilities. If the Draxans had surrendered when we gave them the option, they would still be alive. They chose to continue threatening human civilians, even after being warned. You gave them 72 hours, protested Counselor Vextar. How could they possibly surrender their entire empire in 72 hours? The same way they built their empire in the first place, Doctor, Webb replied. Through decisive action and efficient leadership. If they had been capable of quick decisions for expansion, they should have been capable of quick decisions for survival. He brought up another display showing human defensive installations throughout the galaxy. The red dots, that Dr. Kolvar had worried about, were indeed weapon platforms, but there were far more of them than anyone had suspected. You are concerned about our kinetic weapon platforms, Doctor, Webb observed. You should be. We have spent 50 years quietly positioning them near every potentially hostile civilization in the galaxy. This represents the largest engineering project in human history. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Even the translation systems seemed to hum more quietly. But here is what you may not understand, Doctor, Webb continued. These weapons are not positioned to conquer or control anyone. They exist solely to ensure that if any civilization decides to threaten human civilians, we can respond before they have time to harm anyone we care about. Ambassador Kethra found her voice again. What about your stellar engineering projects? The massive construction sites in the Outer Rim? Dr. Webb nodded, as if he had been expecting this question. Those are our insurance policy against truly existential threats. Devices capable of inducing stellar collapse in enemy star systems. We call them stellar siege engines. The horror in the chamber was almost physical. Several representatives made sounds that had no translation in any language. Why? Whispered Counselor Minda. Why build weapons capable of destroying entire star systems? Because we learned from Earth that the universe is dangerous, Dr. Webb said simply. Today, you are concerned about us. Tomorrow there might be an invasion from another galaxy. Or a plague that threatens all biological life. Or a rogue artificial intelligence that decides organic species are obsolete. When that day comes, you will be very grateful that humans built weapons capable of ending such threats permanently. He looked around the chamber with genuine warmth in his eyes. We do not want to hurt any of you. We actually like most of the species in this council. You have taught us art, philosophy, and scientific concepts we never would have discovered alone. Our children grow up speaking your languages and learning your histories. But we will never again allow anyone to threaten our families, he continued, his voice becoming harder. Not pirates, not empires, not ideological fanatics, and not well-meaning council committees who think they know better than we do how to protect human civilians. The implication hung in the air like a sword. The council could continue trying to restrict human activities, but doing so might eventually be classified as a threat to human security. Dr. Webb's final presentation was the most shocking of all. You want to know our long-term strategy? Here it is. We broadcast every military action we take on galactic communication channels. We make sure everyone sees what happens when you threaten humans. We want potential enemies to understand the consequences of their choices. See, this is not a threat, he clarified. This is a public service announcement. We are saving countless lives by making war too terrible to contemplate. Peace through superior firepower is not just a human motto. It is a gift we give to the galaxy. The session ended with Dr. Webb answering questions for 3 more hours. His responses were always calm, reasonable, and absolutely terrifying. Yes, humans considered total annihilation a proportional response to serious threats. Yes, they had contingency plans for destroying every major civilization in the galaxy if necessary. No, they did not consider this unusual or morally problematic. Most shocking of all was his final statement. The Galactic Council represents the longest period of peace and prosperity in recorded galactic history. Trade is flourishing, scientific cooperation is at an all-time high, military conflicts have virtually disappeared. This is not despite human defensive policies. This is because of them. As representatives filed out of the chamber, many realized that Dr. Webb was right. The galaxy had become more peaceful since humans joined. Not in spite of their violent nature, but because of it. Species were negotiating instead of fighting because everyone understood the alternative. Ambassador Kethra stayed behind to speak with Dr. Webb privately. "You have made the galaxy peaceful through fear," she said quietly. "We have made the galaxy peaceful through honesty," he corrected. "We told everyone exactly what would happen if they chose violence over diplomacy. Most civilizations made the smart choice. The ones who did not make the smart choice are no longer available to influence others toward violence. And if someday the Council decides that human policies are themselves a threat to galactic peace?" Dr. Webb's smile was both sad and final. "Then the Council will discover why we built those stellar siege engines, Ambassador. We hope it never comes to that. We genuinely hope it never comes to that." 6 months later, the Galactic Council officially classified humanity as an apex deterrent species and established the Webb Doctrine as official galactic policy. Before any species could engage in military action, they had to formally consider whether their goals were worth risking human intervention. Galactic peace entered its longest unbroken period in recorded history, not because civilizations had learned to love each other, but because everyone understood that in a universe containing humans, extinction was always just one poor decision away. The galaxy had learned to be civilized, not through moral evolution, but through very practical education about the consequences of being uncivilized.